Aloha, my friends and family. My name's Trey, and I'm back for another talk. And today, my discussion is about the archetypal transition that humanity is going through in the transition between the ages. And it's called From Fishy-Ego, Bad Company to a Healthy Relationship to all humans. Bad company to a respectful way to be. Because you know that's the future for humanity. They want to be free. From fishy ego bad company to a healthy relationship to all humans in the awakened state. What do I mean? Well, as the eras flip, we see the rapid change from the Abrahamic schools of fishy, jealous gods like Enki following the off-planet dark ET leaders on our knees. Humanity is changing into the rapid rechristening of gnosis. The internal relationship with the real, divine, sacred Christos. The rechristening of gnosis in the human family through this technique of UTAT until it is truly only us. The living as the majority, and even the majority of the employees realize the oneness. Respectful humanity, mostly at least, in charge of all of this. Imagine that. Imagine if the CEOs had respect. Well, that's the future. If corporations want to have a future, they have to become a B corporation or one that has awareness. So, since my accident, in September of 2021, I've been thinking a lot about this idea that it's probably where the concept for this talk came from, and is just simply that, since I was given a second chance, is that I have some type of relationship to all of humanity, whether I like it or not, unless I had children or some specific service to, like, say, a 9-to-5 where I live with an elderly or disabled person and took care of them, and I was able to help one spirit or one soul or one person. Some people, it's their mission to help one or a few, I guess, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about how through many lifetimes, and then in this so-called ascension window, we learned that, like it or not, whether we're enlightened masters or soul fragments, we have a relationship to all of humanity, whether we like it or not. So in the age of Aquarius, the enlightened mind, one has a relationship with all beings. Now, since the New Age's inception through the likes of Madame Helena Blavatsky 150 years ago to now, of course, we see the gatekeeper shills with millions of followers promoting a lazy, just meditate and spiritually bypass. Just look at this hand and not this one. Q-type narrative, just sit back and eat your popcorn and watch the show. And the secret government white hats or Quetzalcoatl or, God the Father Almighty or whoever is going to just do it all for you. We'll do it all for you. We, the spiritual superheroes, we will do it all for you. Since we've seen what happened to the very well-loved public speakers, politicians, and musicians when they openly shared a respectful relationship with all beings. It's not really funny, but fortunately, this Piscean era Khazarian gangster tactic of shooting the messenger is rarely, if at all, ever done now. Now it's bribery, co-opt, water down, intimidate, or gaslight the messenger, Make them feel like they're insane, or at least appear totally insane, or shadow ban at the very least. Triangulate and gaslight and scapegoat the messenger. People who believe in the oneness are crazy. Those such as myself who promote shadow work are dreamers and reckless idealists, thinking humans actually have the spiritual self-discipline and psychological discipline and power to heal their own trauma. Man, what's wrong with me? Get real with the divine, Like that people could actually get real with the divine like that. I was just watching Geraldine Orozco, and she says material survival is only half of the life, Spirituality is half of life. If we don't have any awareness about the soul or the spirit, the multidimensionality of the consciousness of the sacred Christos, then we don't really have a relationship to the whole of life. Only, Whereas somebody like me that doesn't actually connect to the 3D reality fully, you can have an impediment or a retarded connection to the 3D. So, folks must remember to be a human in the ancient days and in the near future meant you'll be truth in the Christ within all. You won't have to fight and run wars if you realize, like as I say, the end of all wars is when you realize that it's not a joke. What Bob Marley said, what Jesus said is not trivial. It's not a figure of speech. It's not just a catchy pop song. It's the reality, okay? For some reason, Christ Sophia allowed us Yaldabaoth, and even if we're talking about NPCs and all of it, it was allowed to split off. It was allowed to become narcissistic fragments. It was allowed to become archonically possessed. But yet, in the very, very beginning, all of those fragments, and in the very end, they will all be reclaimed by the divine or else get extinguished. So it's just a fact. So that's how it works. So how will you do that? How will you be truth in the Christ within all? You'll know unequivocally, unwaveringly, the oneness, the Christ, Sophia, has allowed all this. Why? Because, again, it was a horrible experiment to allow Yaldabaoth or the demiurge to proceed with his building. So the Christ Sophia has allowed all of this, giving us all free will. There was never a prison, loose harvest planet, as well as the not only the memory wipe, but the grids and the frequency fences around the planet until the Dark Lords put them there. Okay, we were free. Your incarnation might have lasted, over very many hundreds of years. So, and then what happened, of course, after Sophia gave us all free will, a while after that, maybe 1 million years later, or thousands, hundreds of thousands of years later, after we were around, the master tinkerer junior gods and their Helite 1% criminal robber baron officiales from the Brotherhood of the Snakes in the Age of Atlantis, during Lucifer's rebellion to the subsequent takeover of, let's say over half the mind of the world, or roughly half of the souls and bodies and minds of everyone on the planet. The robber baron officiales, the church, the government, and unelected planetary emperors more recently alike abused this. They abused and broke the cosmic law of non-interference repeatedly to use war, satanic ritual abuse, human blood consumption, and other horrible rituals, of all kinds of psychological warfare, nanotech warfare, weather weaponry, to attempt to permanently solder, if you will, all human souls and wounded fragments, not only humans 2.0, but all of us, especially when you consider the geoengineering is all heavy metals, and to permanently solder all human souls and wounded fragments of spirits in a trauma bond to the endless loose factory farm planet. They've done such a great job turning a lot of it, in other words, a lot of this divine globe, Gaia sphere, into, and its inhabitants into. The robber barons, 1%, and rock stars, mainstream media pundits, and clones all sold their souls to the fallen angels. Of course, we all know that. All of those in certain other fields, shall we say, to not get in too much trouble, I'll say the SDC, the MM, academia, the Ivy League schools. Questionably could be said that the secret societies might have actually created the Ivy League schools, plausibly, but anyways, but they certainly, had a huge roles in the rollouts of all the mind control agendas of the Dark Lords and the Deep State, and of course, famous Hollywood actors have all had relationships to the whole, They were spokesperson for, what the masters of the Matrix wanted us to think reality is, okay? Obviously, so. But on the whole, these Hollywood actors, movie stars, and officiales have, of course, been mostly inverted. Sri Yukteswar told Yogananda, someone was telling me that when he decided to create his ashram in Los Angeles, to shave your face, because Yogananda had a big, huge black beard at the time, and his guru Sri Yukteswar told him to shave your face and talk about how Jesus is a yogi, talk about how Christ is a yogi, and someone, I think he said also, because he was one of those rare householders that he had children, and he had a house and children, but he was an enlightened master, but he told Yogananda that basically you got to shave your face and be the mother to a lot, or the Jesus to a lot of these people, and in Los Angeles, and teach them the ways that that Christ was a yogi, and focus on that, and you're going to have to basically give up being a householder like I am, and having children, and have a relationship to the whole, as be the mother of your community, be the mother and the father, mother, father, God of this community, and so I think he was wildly successful on that. So as a brainwashed normie, wage or property slave or churchian, you go along to get along with fishy, narcissistic, inverted, hijacked, and selfish black hole dogmas. You are here just for the box, the SMM, Saturn Moon Matrix, soul recycling loose farm. You are possessed by the box. No time to be creative. That's why it's not even, they don't even try to include that in elementary school anymore, because they've already programmed that out of normies. God saved God saved, though must suffer forever. But they didn't tell you that would be the result if you obey. So they tell you, if you don't obey God, you're gonna suffer forever in hell, right? What they don't tell you is it's your obedience that keeps you suffering in a psychological hell forever, or in the loose farm, and your memories wiped over and over and over. The snake taught you in the Bible how to do evil, as Mark Twain put it. He showed you how to be. By the way, I'm reading his letters to the earth. It's hilarious. It's wonderful. He was exposing the criminality of the Dark Lords. From a whitey position of power or a privileged white person, because he was a newspaper guy, but he was exposing God in that book. It's hilarious. It's wonderful. So the snake in the Bible, he showed you how to be taken by your base self impulses, right? So fear. So by reverse psychology, or by telling you not to keep the wisdom, you became sort of like becoming hypnotized by studying narcissistic abuse. You became hypnotized by what he told you not to do, reverse psychology. So, but what he's really just teaching you is how to be controlled and taken over by your base or your base chakra or base self impulses of fear, control, external control, worry, survival beast mode. These were obviously weaponized to create the Matrix. The days of psychological lockdown are also numbered, however. For in the age of Aquarius, even to survive, many or most humans, unless they've got some kind of work they can do that's totally solitary, unless they're one of those rare people that don't need a sexual partner or loved ones or people to serve, or can to be totally remote, totally wild, schizoid person who's a master survivalist. Many or most humans must develop a healthier relationship with the whole of humanity, or become more like the Aquarian humanitarian. In the inverted form that we have now, on say the internet, on all the mainstream platforms, we have, since DARPA and the creation of the internet was done in a certain way so that we could have some amount of monopolies going, and several few people in charge of, who gets to have the audience and who doesn't, censorship, shadow banning, and even outright deleting of channels, so that, say, a certain, NM, and their CIA employees, and Mr. T and Mr. Thiel, and, and JK would get to unless I, get real with it and build a website and work on other platforms, well, they get to decide how large my audience is, those handful of 4 or 5 guys, or 10, 15 people, or whatever. They get to decide how many people see my content, because I'm working with them. I'm volunteering to give these videos to their platforms, for free, or as a barter, or a on the consignment kind of thing, so. But it's a volunteer service, of course. I do this out of the love, folks. It's 47 years and 12 hours. This thing has been going, so we're thankful. Those of us within this still, we're thankful for the opportunity to serve the truth, the opinions from someone that has thought deeply or considered and discerned deeply about matters. However, of course, And and I don't even try to upload very much onto X because I don't think Muskie likes me. Again, it just puts it all into that one person's hand. The undone shadow work, repression, guilt, regret, racism, fear, dogma, schism can and will circumvent or retard our feelings towards the Great One. If we have any of these problems, if we feel any of these lower or stupid or jealousy, if we feel any of these lower emotions and allow them to color or allow the archons to get into the thoughts and exaggerate these stupid or retarded feelings, and we don't meditate, it can just retard your relationship to the Holy Ghost every time. And that's what happens. So the deeply troubled narcissist psychopath, yes, they've been usually most of the time, even if they've been marked with this horrible personality disorder since birth, like some I know have, trauma like rips the whatever amount of scab they had on their wound off and makes it much worse. So the deeply troubled narcissist psychopath only considers what's in it for me and how can they control it all. How can this person is so psychopathic. I mean, some of the ones I've had to deal with, I didn't realize it. The weird looks on their faces when I would say anything. It was always filtered through this lens of them being the arbitrator or them being the chooser of whether or not what I said had any validity somehow. It's like so nuts. And they only consider what's in it for me and how can they control it all. Having fallen into the pseudo pretty yet totally pathetic mirror image of the shallow killer vampire con artist extraordinaire Lucifer, their fishy egos make sure they have a healthy relationship with nothing and no one. Okay? Of course, I can empathize with this because if I take my mission more seriously than my relationships with my friends and family and start treating them like shit because I'm going out to save the world, I've become what I preached against. I've become the hero narcissist psychopath. The moment I have disrespect towards someone, the moment I'm harming someone else, I'm a hypocrite, right? Because I'm telling you, the karma boomerang is much faster in the so-called age of Aquarius. So, whereas the person who doesn't question their own thoughts, particularly if they have it on the scale of NPD, they believe the archons are themselves, they become someone who can have a relationship literally with nothing but a dead, evil entities that came from a black hole, that want to pull all of us into a black hole, that probably belong. The archons probably belong in the black hole and nowhere, but that's where the person high on the scale of NPD is going to be too, because they have the NPEs to the point of possession. So whereas with those few knocked off martyr celebrities and rock stars and indeed some of the less famous and charming amongst us here on YouTube, like with when you listen to John Lennon, Bob Marley, you can feel that they actually love everyone. You can hear it in their voice. I mean, you think Michael Jackson made this song, They Don't Really Care About Us, because he was trying to be altruistic? He was trying to give you a warning before they took him out. So a lot of famous, they used to shoot people for that, and it's become passé. So, and plus there's no one as charming as JFK or Martin Luther King Jr. and Bob Marley and John Lennon around now. So, but they all kind of, they put risk their neck to share to openly let us know that they loved us all, that they had an open relationship with all of us. Yeah, they were shot, but now, like I say, there's no one as charming as them, but there's too many of us now, so they quit doing that. So that was the age of Pisces thing. So But, you know, those people and some of those on YouTube that actually love everyone, they'll share their love, respect, kindness, and truth in a way you can feel in your gut, your head, and your heart, your three main chakras, your three main energy, Dantian energy centers. You can sense in your three, and also your three brains. You can sense in all three brains that they love you. It's not like empty words. It's not like somebody who's terrifyingly good looking saying empty words with a bunch of graphics that sound pretty. Narcissists, psychopaths, and gatekeepers, however, can feel, you know, they feel as dry, empty platitudes flowing from their false self. I mean, if you're really psychic or empathic or you feel things deeply, you can pretty much tell that they're empty platitudes, or simply the archons or the draconian reptilian spirits they're channeling coming through their false self to seduce you into believing their hyperbole and their spiritual bypassing rubbish. Whereas in oneness, you'll attain equal respect. You'll realize, like, you know, look at what happened to the Beastie Boys as soon as they studied the Mahayana. You know, they made the Bodhisattva vow into a song because they, you know, openly desired to share their wealth and fame as famous musicians to hip-hop artists, to share the truth that we're all the same thing. So as a fishy mind-controlled slave, your awareness was squished into survival mode. I mean, most people, you know, unless you were born with wealth with a damn silver spoon, but even then it's psychological, because the NPD, narcissism personality, squishes you into the ugly little mirrored room. You know, you become a marionette in a little mirrored cell, a cell of mirrors where you can only see yourself. But if you're poor, you know, they'll try to convince you to be fighting each other, all the other human soul fragments in a dog-eat-dog world for survival. As a fishy mind-controlled slave, your awareness was squished into survival beast mode, or ego control, the false self-control. In the age of awareness, there can be no secrets. What will you do when you know we are all the same stuff? When you realize that no matter how much you lie, or no matter how much you learn about others, or, you know, that they're all really, no matter, you know, even if they've only got 3% human DNA and 97% reptilian, they're still related to you in some far off fragment of the DNA. We know that we are all the same stuff, yet we must respect individuality, and people's choices if they're being harmless, to individuate and respect their choices. In the age of Aquarius, there will be no secrets. Yet, being psychic, remote viewing, or astral travel, and even medical intuitive skills will become known as normal skills for average humans when we're in the age of enlightenment, when they are awakened. Will celebrities have to hide and get a pilot's license like Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer did? There was a lovely story I read in the Free Weekly, Good Times, here in Santa Cruz, California. A man who grew up here in Santa Cruz Mountains, and he's what we call a self-appointed rescue worker. And he went to Haiti with a bunch of hazmat suits when they got the Ebola outbreak, and they ripped him off. There was somebody in the government stole his hazmat suits. Then he went to Kathmandu, and they had it was like a 7.0 or 9.0 earthquake in Kathmandu. And that's a city of almost 1 million people in the mountains, the deep mountains of Nepal, and they're all pretty much all Buddhist, I guess. And so he said that there was no sheriff's calls after that earthquake. No one was looting. and there was no sheriff's calls. And then he said, as a, you know, the punchline, the reason why there was no sheriff's calls is because those people were all raised Buddhist, and they didn't want to rob each other, rape or pillage or steal each other's crap or anything like that. And I thought, wow, that's so different than the USA, where we hear of shootings every week, and it's a city of almost 1 million people where there's, you know, in that devastation, and there was no need to lock anyone up because no one wanted to harm anyone. So that is a good example of a completely different civilization when it comes to their relationship to the whole, you know. Very, you know, because Buddhism, shamanism, Buddhism, and Taoism, as far as I'm aware, 3 of the main ones I've studied, and haven't really been able to be infiltrated and tainted very much by, you know, I mean, they became patriarchal. That's about the worst side, you know, as much as they could infiltrate it. But, you know, it's said the very first shamans were all women, and then they became men later on. You know, same with, you know, the ancient Hindu and Buddhist, the Shivaic gods. They would often have consorts or even be women, the primary one. In the clarity of the collective enlightenment, fishy dogma, narcissistic abuse, and false self-imprisonment will become quickly passé. Because in the age of Aquarius, you know, there's no room for this kind of shit. There's no room for what Terence McKenna called the New York shell trick, you know, with gurus, was like, who's the enlightened one, me or you? Which shell's it under, you know? If you enjoyed this and you haven't already, you know, click on the notification bell, and because I got shadow banned, click on subscribe for more. Follow me on Odyssey or odyssee.com or rumble.com if you want to hear more things I cannot say on the censored alphabet. And of course, as always, if you have the courage, my family, create a great one. Once you realize it's all you, it might be a little easier to stop fighting and make something fun.